This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. If you don't already subscribe to Paramount Plus, please use our affiliate link by going to talkthroughmedia.com/Paramount Plus. Using our affiliate link gives us a little credit, which helps us to keep bringing you great content. U.S. residents only.
Hello and welcome to episode 67 of the Star Trek Discovery podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Ruthie.
And we will be covering season 4, episode 6 of Star Trek Discovery, titled Stormy Weather. But before we get started, we want to remind you that we now provide early access, although early is a subjective term lately, earlier access to our episodes if you are a Patreon subscriber, and you can get access to them as low as $1 a month. Just go to patreon.com/Brian and Ruthie and sign up. And hopefully with the holidays and with something that we have in the news, I will catch up fast enough. So, and you will get the episodes to come out with more alacrity. So anyway.
Good word.
Thank you.
Alacrity.
All right. So first, we have some feedback from last week and some feedback going way back, which we'll explain in a second. So let's get started and open hailing frequencies. All right.
We're going in the Wayback Machine.
Yes. Ken from Chicago has been tweeting us, and we have not been responding. So this is Ken's moment to shine.
All right. From November 27th, Ken is replying to us, and he says, Brian and Ruthie reunited, and it feels so good. With some music emoji, thumbs up emoji, laughing, crying emoji, and a Spock emoji. And then he says, FYI, LT from NC responded to Rebinge It this week about Star Trek Prodigy and maybe forgot the Star Trek Discovery debut.
Well, he eventually got to us.
Yeah. Ask and ye shall receive, Brian. And it's the Enterprise opening credits with Archer's theme. And I feel like I don't know if I saw that on Twitter or somewhere else, but I was watching / listening to that. It was cool. Anyway, then from December 12th, we have on the next Star Trek Discovery, the DMA returns at 5 light years wide. This is a threat so big it can conceivably wreck 2 star systems simultaneously. But first, gotta be all up in there. #feelings. But wait, Jet Reno is back. I don't think she was back yet. Then was she? Because she only got back last week. Anyway.
When was that? When was the date of that tweet?
December 12th. Like I said, when I first started it.
So he probably saw it in the, coming attractions or something, the ready room, that she was back.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe, because last week was like the 16th?
Yes.
Is that right? Yes.
Yes.
Well, here we are at December 16th then. Replying to us once more, came from Chicago. Once again, #Ruthie's right about Star Trek Discovery. Needs to clarify name, rank, and position of the officers, a la Captain Pike in season 2, having everyone on the bridge intro themselves that way.
Now hold on, Ken. I've been tooting that horn just as much as Ruthie has.
I was gonna say, I don't know if you can specifically attribute that to me, but okay. That's probably my favorite hashtag. So,
That's why they do it.
Anyway. That said, Captain Burnham could have had Lieutenant Tilly or someone else as acting number 1. So, and he has a Cake is Eternal gif. Oh, and he had the yes gif from our yeses from on the December 12th tweet. Burnham screaming yes.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that gif. And then on this one, we have Cake is Eternal gif. Still with December 16th. Also, Ruthie's right about officers doing double duty on small ships. In TOS, Bones was a doctor, but also acted as a counselor on the sly. Even Pike's doctor acted as a counselor under the guise of bartender.
Yes.
And yes, psychiatrists are medical docs who can prescribe drugs.
Right.
RX. Yeah. And then there's a gif of the what are they? The Minions. That's what they are. The Minions from Despicable Me. One of them is laying on a couch and the other one is writing on a clipboard. A la psychiatry. Continuing with December 16th. I don't know what this is, but okay. Ruthie being nitpicky, hanging around hashtag nitpicky Brian too much. I don't remember being nitpicky, but all right then.
You gotta get your nitpicky voice on.
Yeah, I don't have a nitpicky voice. I just am. That's just me. Oh my gosh. All right. Continuing. The issue with the Gray/Adira arc is it's stretched out so long and isolated. I'd have preferred Gray already been put in a synthetic body during hiatus. In season 4, we see them acclimating to corporeality with everyone. Instead, it's 3 episodes of revealing the synthetic body solution, doing the procedure and showing the aftermath. At every step, there are so many feelings of anticipation, fear, worry, fear, and fear. Hashtag so many feelings. Admittedly, I'm spoiled by more stoic Star Trek leads. Yeah. He says Captain Burnham was for book flying the ship because trillions of lives are at risk versus the mental and physical health of one person. Also, to spite the Prez claiming Michael has to be the Messiah to save everyone, that Burnham can't make the hard call to sacrifice someone. All right, fair enough.
Fair enough.
Then he says girlfriend Burnham did want Book to have emotional closure, but not in a totally unprecedented anomaly 5 light years wide that destroyed his whole planet in a second. Maybe start small, Book facing a hollow of his planet being destroyed and talking his feelings. Hashtag baby steps. And he was busy on the 16th. I agree with Ruthie. They could have had one of the non-scientists suggest transmitting the data Book had before cutting the tether. Then a scientist reply the scans of a sphere 5 light years in diameter would take months to transmit over the HoloLink channel. Hashtag problem solved. And continuing still, I forgot Burnham. She came up in the sciences, although I can see why Captain Burnham defers to the 32nd century scientists. She probably hasn't had as much time to study 32nd century science as Stamets and other members of the science crew. Okay, I have to pause right here because I was thinking about this watching this particular episode. I'm like, man, aren't they like 900 years behind everything? And how did they catch up so quickly? So that makes sense to me.
All I have to say is The Matrix was out this week.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Okay. Then on December 18th, he says, Ramen Warrior Nuns. Thumbs up emoji, lots of crying, laughing emojis, and a Spock emoji. That is brilliant, Brian J. Malash. That's you. Clap, clap, clap.
Wow.
By the way, I know you get brilliant. By the way, they mentioned in the season debut that Burnham didn't like politics. Given her science background, it makes sense. Scientists often dislike the deception that's so prevalent in politics. emoji.
Yes, that's true.
True. Then again, that's a trend in Star Trek in general that leads tend to dislike politics and resort to it only when necessary and often feel dirty afterwards. The closest they'll come to liking politics is diplomacy. They like interacting with new societies.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that was kind of surprising in Picard because Picard was always an accomplished diplomat. And yet, when he was dealing with the Romulans, he supposedly, had no patience for politics.
I don't know that it was necessarily politics that he disliked per se, but it was the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
There's a slight difference, I think.
I think he also has no tolerance for
he does not suffer
bigotry, or if there's any kind of racial motivation involved, just not offering the assistance because they're Romulan, that kind of thing. But anyway, that's the other show that we'll be podcasting on pretty soon, although later than I thought.
Soon enough. Yeah.
But we'll get to that later.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he does not suffer fools. So there's that. Anyway, that is all about I think that's all we've got from Twitter. Sorry, Ken, that we were so behind on the Twitter. We just kept forgetting it.
Yeah, we brought it up about three different episodes. Oh, we should check Twitter, and then we ended up not checking.
Forgetting
Twitter.
Again.
Yeah. So this time we did.
Even though I had the webpage open right next to the dock. I have no other excuse other than it's late and my brain hurts. I don't know. Although I can't really use that one all the time either because we didn't always record when it was late. So
yeah.
Anyway.
All right. So next bit of feedback is specific to next it's actually, you guys haven't heard the episode yet, so it won't be on the episode, but it will be on the episode that it will cover, which is season 4, episode 5, the examples. So it's from James, the Augmented Sailor, and he says, I'm checking in really late on the examples, but maybe it'll give the Christmas cast some length, smiley face. Yeah, it seems like we've got length, actually. I know,
I'm surprised how many people actually were like, oh, I should read. I'm like, great.
I had a hard time getting motivated to put my thoughts down after watching this episode. That was after not actually seeing it until a few days after it dropped as well. I just wanted to say thank you to you guys for bringing up the merry suing of Michael. It's really starting to bother me, especially after All Is Possible. No Trek before has ever had a character be so focused on and have her just be able to do everything. I mean, think about it. Even Picard had to be mind melded to Sarek. Kirk never got into politics. Sisko had his science officers and engineers for things that were out of his wheelhouse. Janeway even relied on her senior staff. Michael just all of a sudden knows politics along with science, along with captaining a ship, and just always being the main focus. I understand she's the star of the show, but give someone else something to do, please. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I largely agree with you. I mean, she does a fantastic role as the star of the show, but I don't think that they need to rely upon it as much as they do,
Well, they've kind of painted themselves into this corner, right? When they didn't really set the show up as an ensemble show to begin with.
Yeah.
They set it up as a lead with supporting. And when you do that, you kind of have to have the star of the show be the star and do all the star things. But I don't really think that works very well in Star Trek.
Yeah, it's almost
not
like
that kind of show.
It's almost like Star Trek meets Buck Rogers in the 25th century or something, you know? I don't remember a lot about that. I don't remember a lot about that show, but I do remember watching it. And back then that was good science fiction on TV because Battlestar Galactica was already off. But the main thing there is that it's focused on, you know, the main actor, and they did set themselves into a corner, and they've primarily set themselves into the same corner for Picard. Although in Picard's case, I think it's okay to do that because it's Picard. Hopefully in Strange New Worlds, it'll be centered much like, you know, the original series was, but maybe have higher or greater involvement with like the rest of the bridge crew, you know? So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, fingers crossed they actually get the...
Yeah, I have my I have high hopes for that show, just, you know, based on who's working on it and the actors, and I think the approach that they're taking to it. And it seems like they're taking their time to get it right, which I really appreciate. Continuing, he says, thus far this season, I'm also having a problem with how the main plot is just plodding along. We're almost halfway through, and I feel like there's really no advancement. If they want to be episodic, then do that, but don't run out of time on the season and give us a rush finish like we had last season or with season one of Picard. I'm not meaning to harp on things too much. I'm still definitely a fan, but it seems like they keep doing this to us. The writing just needs to get better, especially the endings to things. And then he says, I'm giving the examples a 7.9. Great science was never accomplished but with caution. I'm not sure that's actually true. That was something Jet Reno said. I didn't really categorize things this week, but a few things that stuck out on the episode to me. We have a jet sighting. I still think they should film her like they did in Army of the Dead and edit her into scenes. That way she can be in more episodes. That would definitely help her keep her schedule free and reduce any COVID concerns. Sometimes Doug Jones' performances are weirdly mesmerizing to me. During the initial briefing, I kept noticing him fidgeting with his right hand. He would caress some of the medals on his sash. They look like medals anyway. And keep making little finger movements throughout the scene. When they cut to him, I actually lost track for almost the whole scene and had to rewatch. I think I may be ADHD and weird, though.
No, you're not wrong. He is fiddling with his I guess it's a pendant or something.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a medal.
Yeah.
And it's not really on his sash. He doesn't have a sash. It's just pinned to his uniform.
Yeah.
And it's something specific to Kaminar, and he does keep fiddling with it.
Yeah. I like it. It's kind of like an affectation. And, you know.
Yeah.
Some people like rub on their watch or
it's definitely a tell.
Yeah. Kovich needs to be Odo or a descendant of him. Every time I watch his performances, I see the Constable in many of his mannerisms and his facial features and expressions. Imagine his glasses off and rewatch his scene with Culber. Could this be a Clark Kent / Superman situation that no one has picked up on yet? David Cronenberg has this odd resemblance to Rene Auberjonois to me, and I think it would be fitting and really help out this season with this type of reveal. Interesting.
I'm not sure I agree with that. That he's Odo or a descendant of Odo.
Well, I mean, I definitely don't agree with it, but but I think it's an interesting theory, you know.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
It is true.
Yeah. It's not really anything I've thought about, but I don't know how. Like, I would think or in his case, I guess 800 years in the future, he would get better at like
Faces?
Yeah. So it's possible.
Maybe.
Yeah. But I don't think so. I'm wondering if Dr. What's-His-Face was working on DMA with Stamets had something to do with its creation. He almost seemed to be feeding just enough info to get things going. Jet also seemed a little put off by him as well, at least to me. Could that be some foreshadowing in things to come? Well, I kind of bring this up in the last episode, which at the time that we're recording this, you guys haven't heard it yet. But anyway, more to come on that. That's about all I've got for now. Trying to keep things positive, and I hope this season picks up the same. What's that supposed to say?
Picks up some, maybe?
Oh, yeah.
And gets better as we progress.
And I hope the season picks up some and gets better as we progress. I can't wait to hear everyone else's thoughts. Well, by the time we're playing this, you've already heard other people's thoughts, but I mean, largely, most people seem to love the last episode. So, you know, you were kind of in the minority there. I am curious as to what you think of this episode. So you'll have to let us know. And I'm sure a lot of other people will let us know because they didn't have a lot of time to give us feedback for this episode. And B, the next episode, well, you'll have to read or you'll have to wait and hear about it in the news. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to keep saying that. To make people listen to the news. It's going to be the first thing in the news. I'm going to say it right away, but you have to wait. Damn it.
Okay. So stay tuned. Haha.
All right, let's move on to this week's episode. Season 4, Episode 6, titled Stormy Weather, is written by Ann Kofel Saunders and Brandon Schultz, and directed by number 1, Jonathan Frakes. The description from ParamountPlus.com is as follows. Seeking answers, the USS Discovery ventures into a subspace rift created by the dark matter anomaly. Meanwhile, Book faces a strange visitor from his past. Didn't get a star date this week. The air date was approximately 11:06 p.m. Pacific time on December 22nd. Like we always say, I don't know exactly if it was that time, simply because by the time I checked it, it was 11:08. So it was 11:08 or earlier. So I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt and say that it's 11:06 because they've been pretty consistent except for that 1 week. Anyway, runtime 47 minutes, and that's our 47 for this week. 47 minutes and 9 seconds. So, Ruthie, what did you give this episode out of 10?
I didn't like this episode as much. Nope. Not at all.
Oh no.
I would probably say I'm gonna give this episode an 8. Now science.
Well, I don't know if I'd say looking forward to what your thoughts on it, but I'm curious as to what they are. I love this episode. I didn't give it a 10. Not really sure why I didn't give it a 10, but it did feel pretty good on both watches. And I only had a chance to watch it twice. Usually I try to get in 3 watches, but because we're recording a day early, I didn't. I'm going to give it 9.8888888888888880 to signify that there's an end to that barrier. Anyway, 9.8 almost repeated, but not. Sentient computers with ADHD. I thought. Or in the idea of the little trees that we see with ornaments, bobblehead Christmas tree ornaments. So that's what it kind of looked like a bobblehead. I don't know.
Wait, what now?
The trees. It almost looked like a Christmas tree that they had, and the little things look like ornaments, and the ornaments were their heads. So I was thinking bobblehead. Anyway, it's dumb.
Oh, the genealogy trees.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. I see. Gotcha.
We have some listener ratings. Will from SoCal says, I rank this episode a perfect 10. Ship in distress.
Mike from Arizona says, I give this episode 10. Yeah, I think we're tight now. Out of 10. I enjoyed how much more active the bridge crew and Dr. Pollard were in this episode. The episode added to the intrigue about who's behind the DMA.
And last of our ratings is from Wes from Minnesota. He says, I give Stormy Weather 9 canon throwbacks out of 10. All right, so we have some listener yeses.
Yes!
Andy from the Midwest, he says, and he's a new contributor, so new feedback person. We've got something from him later. Anyway, he says, my yes, I liked how heavily the bridge crew was featured. It was a little weird that most of them were missing last week, but I guess realistic because they can't all be on the bridge 24 hours a day.
Yeah, true enough. All right, Will from SoCal says, great callback by Saru regarding Enterprise and Voyager entering their own subspace void. Michael building her own family tree with her Discovery crew, both sets of parents and baby Spock. Book called out by his father by his real name, Terex.
Yeah. Aaron from Akron, who we haven't heard from this season till now, I think. Hi, Aaron. He says, hello. They remembered the galactic barrier. Yeah, because that goes way back to the second pilot of TOS. So the Gary Mitchell episode.
Yep. All right. Next, we have Mike from Arizona, who says, Gray finally got to be useful. Now, I hope this doesn't mean he only serves as an emotions coach to Zora. However, this feels like a nod to the interaction between Picard and Data in Generations concerning Data getting overwhelmed by emotions.
Well, I have to say that this is my overwhelmingly big yes, that to see that Gray actually did something besides, talking to Adira about what's going on with her. In fact, I wrote in my yeses, I'll say it right here. I said, in big caps, Gray finally has a purpose on this ship. Yes, I'm saying that in caps. Thank God. Even he mentions that he even mentioned it in one of the scenes. He says, all he's been is a passenger hanging out in the lounge all day. It's like, yeah, that's pretty much what you have been. So I was glad to see that he actually had a bit of a purpose, even if it was something rather accidental or not really considered until now. But he could be Zora's counselor.
All right, moving on with Mike. Finally, we're returning to the galactic barrier. Still somewhat liking the idea of Zora having emotions. Feeling kind of miffed, though, that her development as a character has seen more progress than Gray's.
Can't disagree with that.
That's funny. Good nod to Scotty and his 75-year pattern buffer experience. Yeah. Good job, Lieutenant Bryce, for being the history buff. And Burnham's family tree.
I wonder if he learned sonar in the academy days, since
maybe
he's a communications officer.
Could be, or it could be in his history of communication class or something.
Yeah.
Something, whatever.
We have something very special about that later on. So we'll be hearing from someone. Last is Wes from Minnesota. He says, it seems the writers are actually taking a page right out of Mike McMahon's book and running with it. We heard the Enterprise mentioned for the first time in a year and a half, and we had an excellent throwback from to the immunity syndrome and Voyager with their encounters with voids, the void and night. Even the transporter pattern buffer from relics was mentioned. Yeah, which we just mentioned that. All right, Ruthie, what do you have for yeses? Do you have any? I have to ask that based on what you said.
I always appreciate the way that Disco changes our perspective in space, showing us we always look at it on like a single plane, right? We don't really ever, I should say not we always, but in the past, it has always been presented to us as though there were gravity, I guess, is kind of what I'm leaning towards. But in space, there is no anything, I guess, that would force your perspective to be a certain way, the way that there is on Earth. We have gravity, and gravity forces us all to basically for the most part, be looking at things from the same perspective, mostly. Granted, there are really short people and really tall people, but no one is standing on the sky and looking down the other way, is basically what I'm saying. Does that you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Am I talking? Okay, I was like, am I talking to myself? Did I lose you?
I was typing, so I muted myself.
Oh, okay. Anyway, but in space, you don't have that that factor that forces your perspective. So you could come at something from any which way, and they do that often in Discovery, and I always appreciate that. And they did that this time when they were going into the rift. I appreciated what Saru had to say about anger, and
yeah, I did too. Actually, I thought that was worthwhile to say, and we can understand why Book would be, would be angry.
Yeah. Well, it is one of the stages of grief, and I think a lot of times people can get stuck in one of the stages of grief.
Right.
And
true.
I think it can be easy to get stuck in anger because that feels like, what's his face? Tarkin? What's his name? Dr. What's his face? Said last week. Tarka, yeah, that guy. Anger is what did he say? It was a motivating emotion or something.
Yeah, productive.
Yeah. Productive emotion. So it can be, and so I can see how people can get stuck in that stage. But, people can get stuck in all different kinds of stages of grief. So I think recognizing that a lot of times, it takes a good bit of self-reflection to recognize that kind of a thing. And I think, hopefully, if Book recognizes that he is feeling angry a lot and maybe doesn't want to feel that way, that he won't get stuck in that anger phase of his grief. So,
yeah, I mean, anger can be, you don't deal with it, it can consume you for sure.
Yep. I'm glad that Book wasn't holding on to his I didn't really phrase this very well in my notes either, and I'm still having a hard time putting it in proper words. The way that he was feeling, I guess, at the end of last week about being mad about Felix.
Yeah, it was kind of dismissed a little bit, which I would have liked them to re-explore that a little bit before they did, Otherwise, I liked it. What else? Anything else?
No.
No.
I mean, I really like that song.
Oh, yeah.
I like Etta James's version.
Well, I mean, I've talked a little bit about my yeses, but the aborted jump and what that looked like, I thought that really looked cool. And it kind of reminded me of something I'll probably have to experience quite a bit, which is getting stuck in the snow and spinning your tires. So there's that. And anyway, the effect that they used there, I thought was cool. It really just looked stuck. It reminded me of that one episode, the one where Tilly
half
was
in and half out.
Yeah, where Tilly was in the mycelial network, and they ended up getting
with her special
Cobra
friend
out. Yeah. Yeah, and it was half in and half out. The effect was completely different, but it just reminded me of how different they can make it. So it's cool. Anyway, so that and the captain remains with the ship. I know that's been said before. I think Kirk said it, and that is a tradition. I'm sure at some point during every Star Trek show, there's been a point where the captain has said that. And Zora, I like what they're doing with that. I mean, I'm hoping that things don't, get weird, but I don't think they will. I think that I don't know. It's kind of nice in a way, because you see all these evil computer plots where like the computer is trying to shut down everything, like Skylab or whatever. Skynet, sorry. But this is not this is not that. So I like that, and it sounds like Ruthie doesn't.
No, I like it.
Oh, okay.
I like it just fine.
Okay.
I don't dislike it. I like it, actually. I like that. I mean, logically speaking, it does make more sense that a computer would not be the way that Zora is and be more like the evil AI, the singularity, as they call it. But that's the way the machine was on, oh crap, what is the name of that show? Person of Interest.
Oh.
And yeah, I like that just fine. Doesn't bother me.
Okay. It's just the way you said that. I was expecting that to be in your nose or something, like, ooh.
The way I said what?
The way you said, I don't know. You said something about, okay, or something like that. I don't know. I'd have to go back. I'd have to go back and play the replay, which I can't do that until I'd have to go back to the tape, and I can't do that until I'm editing. But anyway, the last.
No, I have no problem with Zora. I guess it didn't really stick out to me because we're sort of expecting this because of Calypso.
Right.
So,
in fact, we were kind of wondering, when's this gonna, how long? Like once they brought this up, which was over 2 seasons ago. It was about time that they finally introduced her as a character, because they had hinted at it, but now she is there and she has emotions, and they're not like saying computer, now they're saying Zora, and Zora seems to be the one answering all the time. So I wonder if then Zora will start saying oh, you shouldn't eat that.
yeah, I'm sorry, Dave, I'm afraid I can't do that.
Yeah.
That is a real concern.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's.
I'm sorry, Book. You've had too much to drink tonight. You should go home.
Yeah. I mean, I think that Michael is right to be concerned about it.
Yeah.
Because we could digress into a whole topic of AI conversation, that could be a whole episode by itself. So I don't really want to delve too deeply into the pluses and minuses of having an AI control your ship. But just suffice it to say that Burnham is right to be a little concerned.
Yeah. And we know what 54% of, well, I guess it wasn't all of the sphere data, but 54% of the AI of the sphere data brings you. And that is an evil, computer-like network that wants to kill everyone. So in control.
Yeah.
The last thing is also Zora related, that she sings a song to Burnham, which I was not expecting, and I thought it was good. So to help her focus a little bit. I guess I'll add, because we kind of skipped over the whole gray has a purpose thing. I did like that that he did take that on. It seemed like he took it on kind of naturally to engage with Zora, and maybe he's the one that would have to, because it's like it's kind of unprecedented, both him and Zora for that matter, and he may be uniquely qualified, at least on the show, to help her kind of like become accustomed to what it means to be alive, I think, and have emotions. Because here he is, this now synth, who was living as this like detached symbiont consciousness that only Adira could see, and now he's a full boy, if you want to say. But I don't know. It gives me more hope that they wouldn't have completely wasted his character, because that's where it seemed it was going. All right. So anyway, let's move on to our nose.
No, 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 no!
That makes me laugh every time.
Okay. Andy from Midwest, he says, my no is I didn't care for the resolution of the problem with the subspace rift. Well, I mean, I don't know. It wasn't really a resolution of the problem. It was more like a way to get out. So I don't know. I like the use of sonar, and I like the, there was a lot of damage to the ship. We don't get to see that too often. We see them fixing it up, back basically in the Archer space dock or whatever.
Yeah. All right. Will from SoCal says Book and Gray are running around Discovery because of reasons. I wrote that too. Because reasons. About Gray, anyway. I didn't think about Book, but yeah. They are not members of Starfleet or the Federation, yet they have free access to the ship's most sensitive assets. Gray works with an emotionally compromised ship's computer, Zora. Book flying the ship using Spore Drive. Non-Starfleet personnel shouldn't be operating any starship. He's not wrong.
Well, I would argue about Book because I believe Book has been he is there as sort of a Starfleet consultant at this point, because otherwise, how could he possibly have access to like the big you know, captain's meeting with the admiral and the president and all that stuff? You know, he wouldn't have that kind of access if he wasn't in some, you know, considered some kind of like consultant role or whatever. So I buy him being there.
But does he though? Or is he just Book's? I mean, is he just Burnham's boyfriend? I'm getting all my. Is he just Michael's boyfriend?
I think he's more than that, because he's, you know, he's been there on away missions, and like I say, I think he's acting as kind of a consultant. So,
yeah, but it hasn't really been clearly defined.
You know, no, it hasn't. But I can see more of a reason for him being there than, say, Gray. You know, up until now, and for that matter, Gray just, you know, being able to like walk right up to the bridge and say, "Hey, there's a problem." That
Pop
one
onto the bridge.
Yeah, that one I get. Book not as much, you know, but Gray I get.
Yeah, same. Not to mention the fact that, well, I think someone else says this, so I'll let them say it. Yeah, I agree with you, Will. I feel like, at least about Gray, I'm kind of leaning towards Brian's explanations or reasons or thinking or whatever about Book, although it hasn't really been clearly defined, and it should be.
They could do a better job of explaining Book, but I think that they've done a decent job of explaining why he's there. But not like, you know, they don't have him like wearing, I don't know, a Starfleet badge or, you know, some kind of like adjunct or something like that. But they have not done the same with Gray. They've basically done nothing for Gray. You know, Gray was literally, there's that line in the episode where he's just basically hanging out in the lounge all day. You know, he's a passenger hanging out in the lounge all day. I wrote that in my notes.
Yep.
And okay, so here's my point. Okay, that's all he's been. He's been a passenger hanging out in the lounge all day up until now. And then when he's not been in the lounge, he's been, you know, consoling or, you know, getting Adira through her day. So don't complain when he actually has something to do. That's my
I can and will complain.
All right. Aaron from Akron is next. He says they can't expose someone to heated space and expect them to live.
That is true. I agree with that. I didn't really understand why Michael didn't go into the pattern buffer if the temperatures were exceeding the EV suit parameters.
Because the captain stays with the ship?
Okay.
She could have stayed with the ship as long as possible and then went in the
Yeah.
pattern buffer. So
She could have stayed with the ship in the pattern buffer, technically. That's not leaving the ship. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I didn't understand why. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get that part either. I was like, man, shouldn't she be?
or go into one of those bubbles that Stamets went in last season. You know, put him in a bubble.
Yeah.
Put her in
Yeah.
a bubble, and then you know, she'll be all comfy and cozy.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know either. All right, next we have Mike from Arizona. Not struggling as much with Burnham saving the day this time because the efforts were better spread across the crew and Zora. I always like Book's character, but the experience with his father didn't seem to advance the story.
I would agree with
I didn't
that.
really understand the whole dad hallucination thing.
It feels like it's more set up to something that's going to be paying off later in the season.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it did lead up to the good angry talk, but I don't know. I was kind of like, I didn't really. I guess I felt kind of neutral about them the first time I watched it, but then the second time I watched it, I was like, yeah, these are kind of put in here for, I don't know, any other reason other than to agitate Book.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, it was said by somebody. I don't know if it was one of us or if it was one of the listeners or if it was even on this podcast or not. But someone somewhere suggested that that amulet he wears may play a factor in all of this at some point. And I mean, is that possible? I don't know. I mean, but I did think of that as a thing. So
I don't think that was on this podcast because I'm not sure I've heard that before.
yeah, it might not have been.
So, I mean, that sounds new to me. Yeah. Okay, going on, he says, a dot sounding like it's screaming in pain and not explained? Yeah, I'm wondering if that's like an extension of Zora or something. All right. Finally, he says, Gray's role is still not clearly defined. Amen, brother. Amen.
Wes from Minnesota differs. He says, today I can find no faults. This was a great episode. Frakes directed Discovery episodes I have found zero faults in them so far. As far as I'm aware, all of his episodes have been great. Yet, he gives it a 9.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Maybe he has a different rating scale than you do. I don't know.
Well, he has something in his hold your horses, so maybe that's the where to take off point. So I don't know. All right, Ruthie, what do you have for the nose on this episode?
I don't really. I guess my main no is probably every time the bridge crew brainstorms, I feel like their IQs drop. They always seem to offer the dumbest suggestions. And I'm like, man, do they have no scientific people consulting on Discovery or something? Because what if I just pick a direction and go that way?
They actually do.
Are you kidding me?
They actually do have scientists consulting on Discovery. They have a couple of them.
Well, that is
PhDs.
very hard to believe.
Yeah.
Because I would appreciate, I've said this before and I'll say it again, I would appreciate more Treknobabble.
Well,
thank you very much.
I think it's one thing to offer the the scientific knowledge, and it's another thing to write it. I think that maybe the writers aren't writing it at a technologically sophisticated enough perspective than what a lot of us want. I agree. There could be more Treknobabble, as you call it. I think that they could do a better job with that. They seem to skirt that and get away from it, and I don't really understand why. Because there's so much of.
I don't either, and I don't like it. It's really starting to grate on me.
I mean, there's enough of it there. I mean, because the whole mycelial network and all of that. I mean, that's clearly just Treknobabble, but
yeah, but that is something that was established and that they could basically copy and paste from the first season.
True.
So, I mean, just I don't know. I feel like Sometimes this is dumbed down Trek, and I don't really care for it very much.
I won't disagree with you on that point. I think that they could make it more. I hate to say it, but make it less Star Wars like. Because I'm sorry, I like Star Wars. Don't get me wrong, but
Me too.
when it comes to Star Trek versus Star Wars, I'm going to pick Star Trek every time. And part of it has to do with the technology part. This very thing that Ruthie brings up. Star Wars lacks any science in its science fiction. It's more like a space fiction,
Space opera.
Yeah, that's what it's called, a space opera. Whereas Star Trek, it has a lot of science fiction-y kind of ideas, and like there's nothing really like that in Star Wars. It's a completely different animal,
Mm-hmm.
It's like in some ways it's like they took a Western. I'm not saying in every way, but there are parts of it where they took a Western and they just put it in space, or they took a war story and they put it in space. It's like there's if you like, I bet that the first Star Wars movie, if you rewrote it and it was changed to be World War II, it could probably work. It's got stormtroopers. They got that already.
Mm-hmm.
But my point being is that there's nothing except for the environment that makes it really science fiction. Whereas in Star Trek, everything about it makes it science fiction. Something like The Expanse, also very science fiction. Yeah, it's supposed to.
Yeah, exactly so.
Like, I like the idea on The Expanse, just to talk about that for a second, that you have these people that have lived in the belt, and they basically can't ever go to Earth because they go to Earth and they're not going to survive very long.
They can't withstand the 1G.
Yeah, they can't. They were born in low gravity, so they can't take the full 1G
pressure.
Yeah. So I don't know. To me, that's not something you'd ever see in a Star Wars movie, or a show. They just don't do that kind of thing. I can see them doing in Star Trek, though, but not in Star Wars. Anyway, we're getting off on a tangent a little bit, and maybe it's time to play.
What is this bizarre segue that's happening right now? Can we maybe stay on point?
I missed that show.
Anyway. What is that from, anyway?
iZombie.
Oh, it's okay.
I love that show so much. It's so hilarious. Oh, it was so good. I mean, that's pretty much all I had for nose. Everything else is kind of basically hold your horses, but I had a lot of them.
Well, I had one really big one, or it's not that big of one, but it kind of like was out there, and it just made me go, huh? And then that wasn't really like the whole screaming of the .23. That just didn't make a lot of sense to me, as Mike said earlier. It like, why did it do that? Were they trying to say that the .23s were sentient too, much like Zora, or was that just kind of some weird fluke? And why would they hear in space anyway?
Speaking of space, I will have something to say about that. Yeah, I don't know.
Because in space,
I do not know.
No one can hear you scream.
Yep. That is another science-y thing. That's why this is science fiction.
Yep. But other than that, I can acknowledge the ones that everyone else has put down here, but I don't have any more to bring up myself. So let's move on to our hold your horses. Sorry.
Hello, this is Captain Tilly. What the hell? What the hell? Hold your horses.
Every time makes me laugh.
I picture her every time when she says
me
it.
Too.
Yeah.
Of that scene. Oh man, that was so funny. It was so good. So good. So
that
good.
episode was also a Jonathan Frakes directed episode.
Well, there you go.
Will from SoCal says, "Please hold my horse." He says, "I grew up watching Knight Rider, and if Kit had emotional issues, feeling overwhelmed and couldn't focus, the show would have been over after the first car chase." Star Trek ships are recognized throughout the series. Enterprise, Voyager, and Defiant are part of the show, but Zora is on a whole new level. She built her own family tree of the crew, yet she was too emotionally compromised to protect them. Now we have a new meaning for the mothership. Can we trust Zora to follow orders given by commands?
It's a good question.
And I think that that's what Gray is there for. I think Zora will assimilate her new emotions into her being and work with them. And I think Gray may be uniquely qualified for that, to help her, simply because of how he existed and, how he is now this sentient golem. That's my take.
I would say, I think the problem was that the emotions are new.
Yeah.
And so therefore, it's not that she's too emotionally compromised to protect them. It's not that she doesn't want to. It's that she is experiencing a lot of overwhelming emotions for the first time, and it can be really hard to process. Yeah. So think back to the very first time you had a really strong, powerful emotion and how well you handled it. Maybe. I have no idea. But it's kind of like that, I think. But yeah, I think that Zora following commands is a concern.
Sure. I can see that. I can definitely see it being a concern.
Yep. Wes from Minnesota is agreeing with Will from SoCal about, wait, why does Gray have access to sensitive areas of the ship? At least Gray did something this week. That was something. I agree. Although I thought it was weird that that Burnham was like, "You're with me." Well, why?
Yeah.
I didn't get that at all. Like, for what purpose? All he did when they were in the ready room was sit there. Like,
He's going to be Zora's babysitter.
Thoughts. I have many thoughts about this.
Well, you can share them.
Well, I realized last week, and I think I may have said this in passing, I didn't really miss Gray and Adira from last week.
You did mention it you did.
Yeah. And I think that I might be okay with Adira being there, but Gray, I'm like, what is going on with this dude? I don't I don't understand why Gray draws this conclusion about Zora. I don't understand why Gray has to run to the bridge to tell the captain why he can't call her on comms. I don't understand why Gray needs to be on the bridge for this, because reasons.
Going back to the thing you said, yeah, I don't understand though. Oh, I need to go run over to, like, why not just call the bridge up? You don't even have to transport into the bridge. Just call the bridge up.
Yeah.
get the permission of the captain to come on board before, heading straight up there.
Just popping in. Yeah. I don't understand the whole "you're with me" thing. I don't like any of this. I don't understand what's going on with Gray. I don't understand why Gray is the only one who seems to get it. He's not a professional, okay? I don't understand why he's there helping with her. He's not. If anything, it should be Culber helping Zora process emotions. Because, I mean, this whole Gray is training to be a guardian. Okay, great. Guardians help Trill and their symbionts integrate, don't they? That is not the same thing as someone having emotions for the first time and dealing with them.
And it's also we're saying that he's training to be a guardian. He's not actually
not a guardian yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't really think that him integrating into his corporeal body is really the same thing at all. He already had emotions. He already knew how to deal with them.
Oh,
he just
true.
Now has a physical body. So what? Everyone rejoicing that he has a purpose. Yeah, but his purpose is now stupid. He's basically repeating the damn computer. That's all he's doing. They have made him into what's her face's role on Galaxy Quest. Oh, what is her name? I cannot remember her name. Why can I not remember her name?
Who is her?
Have you seen Galaxy Quest?
Of course I have.
Okay. Well, the girl, the lady, the woman who repeats the computer on Galaxy Quest.
Oh, okay.
What is her name? From Alien?
Oh, Sigourney Weaver.
Yes, thank you. Sigourney Weaver.
That's who I was thinking you meant, but...
Yeah, I have one job on this ship. It's stupid, but I'm gonna do it, okay? Yeah, he is basically Sigourney Weaver's character. He repeats the computer. That I feel like that's what we're doing. And I'm like, no. That was making fun of something. That's not something that you want to recreate, okay? I mean, it was making fun of it in a fun and funny way. Don't get me wrong. I love Galaxy Quest. It is my favorite Star Trek movie. I'm quoting Will Wheaton. I think he said that.
Yeah,
anyway.
He did. He did, actually.
Yeah. So anyway, I love Galaxy Quest. But again, he's becoming the most pointless character on the ship.
Becoming. He's already there.
Yeah. Well, they're not helping. This week did not help any at all.
See, so. I thought it helped some because at least he had, at least
he's repeating the computer. Great. That's something to aspire to.
I don't know. At least he got her to report that there was an issue. I don't know because Zora wasn't going to do that. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, but why him?
Why not him? They need to have something to give him to do.
Not really.
Okay, well, kick his ass off the ship. Okay, that's fine. Kick his ass off the ship. That I know. That's. I mean,
here's my thing about this.
He'll definitely be seen if you kick his ass off the ship. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know what they need to or should do with him, but it's something that I don't know. I just here's the thing. Michael is aware from the previous episode that Zora is experiencing emotions. This should have, and I thought did, throw up all kinds of red flags. Okay? And instead of just running diagnostics, which they did 2 times, they should have done something else like maybe start to explore this a little bit, investigate a little bit. maybe if they had, I feel like him stumbling upon this sort of randomly, that's not cool. If they had come to this as a like, oh, we understand that you're training to be a guardian. Perhaps you can, you know, converse with Zora or, you know, do something as she should have had a minder. Okay. Is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
She should have had somebody, assigned to sort of, I mean, basically therapy sessions. Like, what do you do with someone who has never experienced emotions before and is suddenly experiencing emotions? Well, you find someone to help them process them. Because, I mean, I can imagine it would be very overwhelming to suddenly have these feelings, and it can make you feel really out of control, especially if you're someone who is really logical and, you know, a computer and basically unaccustomed to this kind of a thing. So if they had not stumbled upon this randomly and had assigned Gray to this, then maybe I would be a little bit more okay with it than I am. But it's really, I just, I don't like it.
Okay. I liked it. I like it more than I liked it before. That's my take on it. So, you got any other hold your horses?
Well, the vacuum of space would have suffocated that fire practically immediately, right? So why didn't it?
I don't know.
I don't know either. If they shut down life support, shouldn't that have given more power to boost the shields?
Yeah.
So why didn't it? Also, no one should go into the pattern buffer alone for reasons, except for Book. I mean, I know he has grudge with him, but so why are people not going into the pattern buffer alone again?
Seems to me that them going alone would be the right way to go, not going together, because then you just end up with a transporter accident, you know? And
yeah, you totally could. I didn't get that whole don't go alone thing. It's not like you can do anything in the pattern buffer. So what does it really matter if you're alone or not? Like, really? I didn't understand that alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, Book was okay to go alone, except for Grudge. But, I mean, it's just a cat.
Yeah.
So, I didn't understand that. Also, where does her hair go when she activates her helmet?
I wondered that myself, actually.
I've wondered that every single time I see her. I'm like, where does all that hair go? When she activates her helmet, it just magically tucks in somehow. I don't know.
Maybe she has a button that magically tucks them in.
I feel like her hair should already be like in the suit, but every single time I've seen her, it's always hanging out of the suit, and then suddenly it disappears when she has her helmet on. She activates her helmet or whatever, however you want to call it. So yeah, I don't know. I think I pretty much said everything else when other people gave their stuff. So
Stamets doesn't have anyone else to delegate to other than Book.
Well, when it comes to flying the ship, nope.
Well, that I understand, but you know, earlier he gives him, you know, something, and he's like, "I'm glad you're here," and I was just like, "Well, come on, there's got to be other engineers that he could use, or scientists, or scientific engineers, or engineering scientists, whatever he is."
Yeah, I don't know what he is. I thought he was a botanist or a biologist or something, but now he's all up in the theoretical astrophysics stuff. So
yeah. The OO desire to, like, you know, step in or whatever, it seemed to be misguided. They have other crew for that, like especially closer to where that was going on was what, Tech 17? Is that where it was?
I don't know. I didn't understand her story though. It's like, so
Yeah.
I did not get that at all. I feel like they are making a concerted effort to throw in backstory for the crew, but they're kind of doing it at the most inopportune times. Like, I know we're in the middle of this emergency, but let me stop to give you a personal anecdote.
Yeah.
Like, what? Do you think now is the right time to go into this?
Yeah, it's like from a couple weeks ago that on the ice moon, we're running
And
away
from
from
last
these.
week.
Yeah, we're running away from
Yep.
these creatures, and hey, it's time to have a
Let's
kumbaya
stop it.
moment.
I was thinking kumbaya too. That's so funny. We almost said it at the same time. I was going to say kumbaya. Oh my gosh. Yep. And last week with Reese and his hurricane story.
Oh yeah, yeah, very
Like-
similar to Owo and her story. It's like now I'm expecting Detmer to have a similar story, or
Yeah.
this is how Detmer shot her eye out, or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they used to anyway have these moments at the end of the episode when people would explain, not at the end of, I don't know about Discovery, but like in TNG and stuff, they would have like the whole like, oh, the action is done, we're gonna wrap it up kind of scene at the end of the episode. You know what I'm talking about? And then they would explain and go into, here's why I was feeling this way or going, or doing that or whatever. Not in the middle of an emergency.
Right.
Just come on, people. Like you're professionals.
Yes, it's the middle of an emergency, so I'm going to talk about my feelings. I love you. I love you too. It's like, get off the damn ship.
Yep.
Yeah. There were a few examples of that, of course, so I just cited the one. Okay, well, anyway, that's all I have written down. Let's move on to our feedback section and open hailing frequencies for a second time. Okay, so we've got a voicemail from Jeff, X-Force 11, keeping that streak alive.
Well, hello, Star Trek fans. It's Jeff, X-Force 11.
Verify our range to target. One ping only.
I get it.
What a very cool episode of Discovery, this Stormy Weather ep where we get the submarine genre brought into the Starfleet age, and we get more insight into Zora and her growing as a character, and man, does she have a beautiful singing voice. And we also get some insight into Book's past with his dad. I really like this episode and the reveals that this anomaly comes from outside the galaxy and just how much more that raises the stakes. All right, those are my thoughts. X-Force is out.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff, X-Force 11, keeping the streak alive. And I love the Hunt for Red October reference there. One ping only.
Yep. I agree. She has quite the singing voice.
One ping only. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Sean Connery, the Russian submarine captain. Ah.
All right, moving on to our written feedback. First is from Aaron from Akron. He says, we're all agreed that Discovery created the DMA, right? I would say no, we're not.
Yeah, what? I maybe. I don't know. What makes you say that?
It's a possibility,
That's
but
what I want to know.
I don't see it. The idea of it being outside of our galaxy, I kind of like that idea. So I mean, it's possible. I don't know, but based on the things that I heard today, or in this week's episode, I don't think so. He continues, he says, I was never a fan of jazz or blues, but Ella can lay it down, as it were. Zora knows some mood music, and when it needs to be there.
Yep. She sure can. Although I think I said earlier I like Etta James's version. But it's a great song.
You did.
Ella has a great set of pipes too. All righty. Next we have Andy from the Midwest. Now, I think a lot of this is probably not necessarily specific to this episode, but he did throw in a little bit about this episode, so I just put this whole thing in this week's feedback. But it might not be all about this week's feedback or this week's episode. Anyway, Andy from the Midwest says, "Hi, Brian and Ruthie. This might be long, but it doesn't have to go on the air. And by the way, unless you say specifically, don't put this on the air, we probably will. I mainly just want to introduce myself and thank you for your podcast." Thank you for listening, Andy. All right, he goes on. "I just started listening to podcasts earlier this year and only recently found yours. I did not care for the first disco podcast I found, so I started listening to the Rebinge DS9 podcast, which I love. After I caught up on that, I discovered yours and started rewatching disco from the beginning as I listen. I'm currently in the middle of season 2, but also keeping up with season 4. In other words, I listen to a lot of Brian and Ruthie right now." Awesome. "By the way, tone is sometimes hard to read, so assume anything I say is good-natured. You don't know me, but to me, you are like friends. I think I am about the same age as you based on how you talk. I was introduced to Star Trek at the age of 9 in the mid-'80s. It didn't air where I lived, but a family friend from another state recorded a handful of episodes on VHS for our family.
Man,
They
it didn't air where you were? Where the heck were you raised? That's
I know,
terrible.
right?
Must have been a really
Kinda.
small town or something.
I mean, it was the 80s, so
Well, yeah. You know what I mean, though. Just not. I guess it didn't air everywhere, and well, at least you got a chance. That's the main thing.
yeah, no kidding. And also, FYI, how old was I in the mid 80s? I think I was also 9 in the mid 80s.
Yes,
8 or
we
9.
could give away your age, if you wanted to, but basically you were around that age. I was older, more seasoned,
more mature.
I every time I think of that, I think of Counselor Troy saying that to Riker, and he says, "That's a damn thing to say to a man," or something like that.
That's a hell of a thing.
Anyway, when Next Gen had premiered, I was in college and was 20. So I'm older than Ruthie, but we're both part of the Gen X. I'm just on the one end and she's on the other end. Well, you're kind of in the middle of it, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I would say that I'm at the end of Gen X. I don't know. I've heard conflicting reports about when Gen X ends, but I feel like it ends at the end of the 80s, personally. I don't know. Anyway, it goes from like 1960 to Gen X actually spans it's like 1960 something.
Yeah.
All the way to
64, 65 to 1980 or 81.
I think 9. Oh, is it really that?
Well,
early?
I mean, yeah, because it's supposed to be, but I don't know. I find that a lot of us have more connections to millennials than we used to. So if someone's called a millennial and they're, in their late 30s, we probably have a lot more in common with you than we once did. But anyway,
yes,
this is
1965 to 1980.
Yep.
There you go. Good job.
Thank you.
All right. going far afield.
I have looked this up.
I looked it up too. I just can't ever remember. Anyway, I am 45. I will say that. So there you go.
And I am
Excuse
54.
me. So
Not for
we
long.
are
2 weeks from 2 weeks from today, I will be 55. So I will be able to move into a retirement community.
approximately 3.5 months. I will be 46. So I am a bicentennial baby, as they say. So anyway, let's back up a little bit. It didn't air where I lived, but a family friend from another state, goodness, recorded a handful of episodes on VHS for our family. They just so happened to be third season episodes, starting with "And the Children Shall Lead" and "Spock's Brain." And that's all I had to watch for a couple years until TNG debuted. But I loved it anyway, and from the perspective of a 9-year-old, those episodes were pretty cool. And I have a soft spot for them to this day. But my real love now is the first half of season 1. I've been able to share Star Trek with my family, and they all prefer a different series. TNG for my wife, Voyager for my oldest son, and DS9 for my daughter. My youngest son never cared for it until he saw Prodigy, so I am enjoying that I finally have a series to watch with him. I've been disappointed that current Trek has to include language and violence that limits the age of the audience, because those things don't enhance the episodes in any way, and Trek has always been a cross-generational family experience for me.
Yeah.
I have to agree with you there.
We agree with you, because I don't really see what it's bringing to the table, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
And
they don't need it.
As you will hear me say many times, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yes, I have heard you say that.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Yeah, so we agree with you. I have a lot of thoughts about Disco, but you and your listeners usually do a good job of covering all the points. I'm usually more in line with Ruthie's thoughts, except regarding the return visit to Talos 4. That was the first time I was really excited about Trek again in the current era. I don't remember that episode.
You weren't. I was like really, really psyched about seeing the Talosians, and because it was in reference to the cage and Vina and all that stuff, and you were kind of nonplussed about it. I don't think you had seen that episode in quite some time, so to you it didn't mean very much, but to me it was like huge, because when I think of Pike, I think of that, and for them to go there and go to Talos 4 and have Vina and have the Talosians and all that stuff, that just did it for me, you know. So
right, I vaguely remember this episode.
Yeah.
And I will take your word for it about my reaction.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Going on.
But that also implies that he disagrees with me, or that we mostly agree. I would say probably 80% agree with stuff, but occasionally we don't. I would say this particular week we don't, but not like in a Glenn under the dumpster type of way. that one I'll always remember. I'll be on my deathbed and I'll remember that one.
I felt so bad too. I was like, oh, sorry.
For listeners that don't know what the hell I'm talking about, I'll just say this really quickly. There's a scene in The Walking Dead where a character, we think he's dead, and they go several episodes and we find out he's not dead. And there were little clues in the scene that did not conclusively say that did not conclusively indicate that he was dead. And I was right there, and I was saying he's alive, and when it happened. And when he showed up as alive, I was like, yeah, he's alive. I knew it. And Ruthie was so pissed off. I could
really
I could feel the anger, like just
he was getting scorched through the microphone.
yeah. And she wasn't angry with me. She was angry with the show. But I wanted to, crawl under my desk and just, yeah. So
I felt so bad because Brian was so excited and I had just dashed all of his dreams. It was not a fun recording episode because he was so.
No, we've had a few of those that have not been fun. The Negan episode, that was another one that was like that.
Yeah. Star Trek is definitely has a better track record.
Yes.
The Walking Dead, but anyway, it's been funny. Anyhow, we're once again
7 years. 7 years you and I have been podcasting together.
Oh man, that's crazy.
I know.
It's a long time, listeners. All right. Yes, binging your shows means I pick up certain things, like the fact that Brian talks about the episode Lethe a lot. Maybe I just pick up on that because I pronounce it differently in my head, as one syllable with a long A sound rhymes with bathe. I know Brian looked it up and is probably correct, but I don't like his pronunciation, so I cringe and laugh every time he says it. Oh,
I did look it up. It's a Greek word, and that's where it comes from. And the first time I heard it was actually in After Trek, the show that preceded the Ready Room, what's his name, Matt and Myra did. That's where I heard it. So originally, and I went back and I didn't want to mispronounce. I hate it when there's some podcasters, they just make up shit when they're on the microphone, and they try to sound like they actually know what they're doing. I hate that. I hate when people do that. So that's why we have,
Incorrect.
I'll even put if I've made a mistake during the episode or during when we record, and I realize that I've made a mistake, I put this in the episode. And in fact, I did that in the last week's episode. I put that in there. There's something I said, it was wrong. And I realized after I said it, it was wrong. And I threw incorrect, or I think it was something about the deadline. The deadline was, you only have, you have till,
Oh, you said Friday, December 23rd, maybe, or I don't know, something about it. It was something about the date.
It was, well, it's because the date was in the past. That's what it was. It was like, you have until this time to get your feedback in. So hurry up. Well, it's like, well, how about, time travel, get in the DeLorean and or a slingshot around the sun. And,
Yep.
Anyway.
All right. Going on, he says, I was amused recently when you were talking about Tim Hortons.
It's true, though.
Me laugh, and I'll tell you why this makes me laugh in a minute. I had never heard of it until I drove through Canada for the first time a few years ago. I started calling it the McDonald's of Canada because there were so many. You could practically see one still in the rearview mirror while approaching the next one.
Yeah.
And that is funny to me because I don't think I had ever really heard about a Tim Hortons until I started watching How I Met Your Mother, and there's a character from Canada on this show. And they make fun of her a lot for being Canadian, and they talked about Tim Hortons. It was really funny. And I was like, oh, okay. Anyway, it's funny.
Yeah.
And that's funny.
Yeah.
All right.
mean, there are some Tim Hortons in the States, like predominantly there's some in Detroit, I know, and seen a few.
Are those the states that border Canada?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a few in Cleveland. There was actually one when I lived in Charleston, West Virginia. There was one there.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
But yeah, so there are some in the States, but they're predominantly in Canada. And because at one point they were owned, I don't know if they still are, but they were owned by the same company that owns Wendy's. So, so
interesting.
A lot of them were, like Taco Bell and Long John Silver's will open like one restaurant and it's both, or Dunkin' and Baskin Robbins, the same thing. They'll do that kind of thing. So, but yeah. Anyway,
interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on, he says, I agree with the general consensus regarding Gray and Adira, but the only thing I haven't really heard anyone talk about is their age. They were introduced as teenagers, but seem to be written as if they are adults with a supposedly epic love story, jobs, and living on their own. I feel like they are also trying to act like adults, but can't hide the fact that they are still kids, and that is a little grating to me.
Well, you have not heard this because in the episode that I haven't released yet, I did talk about this. I said, isn't that kind of gross? Because I was thinking it's like, they're not of consenting age, and yet they're basically living like a, married couple or living together couple.
Let's back up a little bit. We don't know exactly how old they are, except for the fact that they're teenagers, and the age of consent in Oklahoma is 16. So they could be consenting age.
True.
But they are kids. You're true. You are true. You are correct, sir. They are still kids, and it does kind of irritate me a little bit.
Yeah, that whole age of consent is kind of strange because it varies from place to place, state to state, province to province, country to country. It's I've seen 12 be the age, which just blows my mind. Not here.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, but
that is I mean, I don't know. That's such a sticky issue. Anyway, moving on, he says, I have enjoyed the last 2 episodes. They felt a little more like Trek. I would prefer the ER or NYPD Blue style of serialization where the story each week stands on its own, but the personal and political stories carry from week to week. I agree with that, actually. I would prefer that, I think, because I don't really like how they're doing the way that they have set it up to where it's like a full season story makes it seem like there's no one else in the Federation that can solve this problem.
Yeah.
And that's just utter bullshit.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, really, it's not like they're the only... I mean, I can understand if this were Farscape and they were the only ship out there doing their own thing, and, then everything would be up to them or whatever, because they would be the center of their universe. But this is a single ship within a larger organization called the Federation, the United Federation of Planets. And I don't understand why Discovery is the only ship working on this problem. They should have people at Starfleet headquarters working on it. And I don't like it. And I really would like for them to find a different way to tell their stories. And honestly, hire better writers. That's what I would like. But
just to give you an example of what I said earlier, the age of consent in Japan is 13.
Well, that's really freaking young, but they are a different culture that has different ideas about when you reach adulthood. So, I don't know. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I think it's crazy. I mean, okay. Not to put too fine a point on it, but your brain is still forming until you're 25. So, there is that after all. Anyway, he says, keep up the good work. Well, thank you so much, Andy. We're glad that you found us.
Right. That is it for our listener feedback this week. We got more than I thought.
Yeah. A lot more than we expected.
Yeah.
Put that tight deadline on it and people snap too, I tell you what.
Yeah. It's like you say, if you give people enough, warning, they'll give you feedback. Anyway, all right. Do you have any additional notes you want to bring up?
Yeah, I think it's amazing that cat carriers of the 32nd century look surprisingly similar to those of the 21st century. They haven't come up with any better technology since then.
The thing I noticed is when you go into the Paramount Plus and you scroll through and you see the image about the episode, it's a picture of Grudge.
Yep.
I thought that was good. Yeah, you'd think that they'd have something a little more elaborate, or maybe anti-grav.
You would think.
Or programmable matter, just like make the cage around Grudge.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to call him, but technically she's played by a he, but
as we all know, she's a queen.
Yes, but with programmable matter, you could make a cage just form around her.
Something. I don't know. I was a little disappointed in that. I was like, man, they couldn't come up with some kind of better, cool way to transport a cat. I mean, like a little pouch that straps to his body or something. They have such things now. I would think that would be, cats like being close to you if they like being held. I think Grudge likes being held. I don't know. It's kind of, we talked about this last season. I don't really think that David Ajala is a cat person.
He seems to be a little more.
He's better. Yes, I think, after having worked with a cat for so long. But at the beginning of last season, I was like, man, he just doesn't really know how to hold a cat, does he? Anyway. I think Grudge likes to be held, so at least probably he likes to be held by Book. So I can imagine some kind of like cat pouch thing where you can like secure the cat. Like you can basically cocoon the cat because they like to be swaddled. It comforts them to be swaddled, but like cocoon and swaddle the cat close to your body so that you don't have to you can still have your hands free and you can still, move about. It's just kind of like a little papoose for a cat. I don't know. Something like that is what I would think, but I don't know. Maybe getting the cat actor to do that is a little out of the question, but I don't know. That cat carrier, I was like, man, after how many years and we still don't have advancements on cat carriers? Oh man, where were all those sparks coming from?
I don't know. It seems like they have flamethrowers on the Discovery.
Well, I'm not talking about before the flames. I'm talking about just all the sparks. I was like, man, I don't understand this. It seems like they have. It's like the sparks flying about, or like the lens flares.
Oh yeah.
Issue.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of sparks flying about. Anyway, that's all I got.
I don't have anything other than the spot the references section, so I'm just going to go right into it. And I didn't do a comprehensive spot the references, because I only got a chance to watch it twice today. So we mentioned the galactic barrier, That comes from Where No Man Has Gone Before. That was the Gary Mitchell episode, if you don't recognize that. But that is indicated here. We mentioned, or Saru mentions two things. He mentions the Enterprise and Voyager. And specifically, which Enterprise was he mentioning? It could be, of course, TOS or TNG. It's TNG. And they're talking about, like ships that have gone through subspace rifts. And first of all, I thought that was kind of dumb, thinking like, okay, are you telling me in, 900 years, only 2 ships have gone through a subspace rift, and it just happens to be the 2 that we know?
Yep, that's right.
It would have benefited there from putting in a couple of ships that we didn't know. But anyway, the Enterprise went into a subspace rift as part of the episode Force of Nature. And that is the one where they said that the warp drives were tearing subspace and they had to put in speed limits. And then they conveniently forgot about those speed limits, or they, retconned it so that the drives didn't rip subspace. Anyway, that was explained by, that's why the warp nacelles look different in Voyager and on the Enterprise E. They look different because they don't tear subspace. That's the rub anyway.
Good to know.
Yeah. Anyway, so that the Voyager episode is, of course, the Void. That's where they end up in a subspace rift. And of course, the pattern buffer that was mentioned, that was the episode where Scotty is existing in a pattern buffer for 75 years. And that is from the TNG season 6 episode Relics. So that's all I got. I don't know of anything else that had been mentioned that comes from a previous, but there may be other stuff, but that's all I got. So let's move on to Shipwide announcements. First, for the Ready Room, we had guest Jonathan Frakes, who was the director this week, and I thought he did a fine job. And we had a montage of all of the episodes that he directed on all of the shows that he has directed on. I know he didn't direct ever on Enterprise, but he's directed on TNG, DS9, Voyager, and
Picard,
Discovery, and Picard. Yeah, so they had all of them on there. Also, they had the thing I noticed is they didn't show anything from First Contact and Insurrection, but anyway, so there was that. The rest of the news, thanks to Wes Huntington for collecting most of these. That's most of his work. Okay. So for weeks now, I've predicted that we would get a break. It turns out that I nailed it. Partially, anyway. So what I said is, because we saw that Prodigy had taken this hiatus, that it made sense, given that they did this, that they were going to do the same again for Discovery. And we would get a break after 7 shows. So we would get, it would go until December 30th. And then when Prodigy comes back on the 6th, Discovery would be off. Now, what I thought, so that I nailed. I got it 100% correct. And they didn't announce it until today. What I didn't get right is I thought that once Prodigy's 5 episodes had aired, that what was going to come back was Picard. I thought Picard would air on February 10th. Well, that turned out to be incorrect. That was
Incorrect.
instead on February 10th. That's when Discovery returns. So either one of two things is going to happen. Either Picard and Discovery are going to overlap, or what I'm guessing is the case, Picard is going to actually air in March instead of in February as originally mentioned. So like they said February, but they didn't say when in February. Well, if Discovery is going to be airing their 6 weeks, the way it works out is the first episode back would be on February 10th, and that would be so episode 8, episode 9 on the 17th, episode 10 on the 24th, episode 11 on the 3rd of March, episode 12 on the 10th of March, episode 13 on the 17th of March, which would mean Picard would come back Thursday, March 24th, assuming there's no breaks in there. So that's what we'd be looking for, is an announcement of March 24th, or, if they put in a break in there, March 31st. I don't imagine there will be. They seem to put them right up against each other. So, except for the 1 week where we had both Prodigy and Discovery. So anyway, that's what it looks like to me. So I don't take great, that I'm right, but I am right. I like I said, I just knew it. There were all the signs there, and no one was picking up on them except me for some reason. But I was sure that that's what they were going to do, and I was right. Anyway, moving on. On December 4th, Anson Mount and his wife, Dara, became proud parents. Their daughter was born on the 4th. Her name was Clover, and it was just announced this week. That's why we're only talking about it now. Kalinda Vasquez, who wrote the short trek episode Ask Not, and then wrote the season 3 episode Terra Firma Part 2, has ties to write a Trek film, although not the one that's supposed to be released December 22nd, 2023. But anyway, she has inked a development deal with Netflix, apparently. So good for her. She was also a co-executive producer on Fear the Walking Dead, season 4. So I recognized her name. And Amazon Prime, we're not surprised to this, but Amazon Prime is removing the 5 pre-Kurtzman era Star Trek series off of its streaming service in the US. It's another move to make Paramount Plus the home of all televised Trek in the US. So I believe you can still get it on Hulu.
Incorrect.
But I imagine at some point it'll be off of Hulu as well. Trek movie.
Yeah, it's probably just a matter of those contracts expiring.
Yeah. But I mean, they're doing what everyone else is doing, and yeah, I know we'll have some people complain about it, but this is the trend. I don't see this trend changing, because this seems to be what is working for these companies. So that's what they're doing, so.
Mm-hmm.
Editor's note: after we recorded this, it was announced that Star Trek series would also be removed from Hulu. So I wanted to add that before setting this out. And I'm adding this January 1st, 2022. Happy New Year, everyone.
Anyway, like I imagine just this week, Paramount Plus released the first episodes of, I don't know if it's episode or episodes, of the spinoff to Yellowstone, 1883. And that's only on Paramount Plus. But Yellowstone is not on Paramount Plus at all, even though it's on the Paramount Network. It is on Peacock. The first 3 seasons of it are on Peacock. So I imagine that since that's has turned out to be a very popular show, they'll probably want the rights back to that to bring that into Paramount Plus at some point. But right now, Peacock owns the streaming rights to it, so, but they didn't have anything to do with the production of it. They just bought the rights from CBS at the time or whatever, Viacom. Anyway, Trek Movie also confirmed that the international deal for Prime Video to stream Picard outside of the US and Canada is still in place. So, international fans, you won't have to worry about what happened with Discovery and it going off of Netflix. Apparently, this will not happen for Picard. It'll stay on Prime Video, at least for this season anyway. Perfect World Entertainment, who are the makers of the Star Trek Online game, have been bought out by a Swedish-based gaming company, Embracer Group. So I don't know what that means for the game. I know the game is still pretty popular. I know LT plays it. So hopefully it doesn't mean too much. That'll keep going. And that's it. We usually talk about Parrot Analytics, but we don't have any Parrot Analytics because Discovery and all the other Star Trek shows were out of the top 10 again this week for I think the second week in a row. So with that, Ruthie, why don't you take it on out and tell people how to contact us and send feedback?
Okay. The feedback deadline for Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Episode 7 is Saturday, January the 1st, 2022 at 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central, as always, subject to change.
And then we will be off. At least this podcast will be off. But hopefully you will get to hear this episode before that episode is due. I'm hoping I'm gonna catch up in the next few days. So
Incorrect.
Anyway.
All right. To submit your theories and feedback, go to talkthroughmedia.com/feedback, where you can submit text or audio. You can call 216-232-6146 and leave a voicemail. You can email us, Star Trek Discovery at talkthroughmedia.com. You can post in our designated episode thread in our Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts. If you would like to support the podcast, you can like our page on Facebook, which is facebook.com/talkthroughmedia. And while you're there, you can write a review. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Star Trek TTM. You can share us on Facebook and retweet us on Twitter, especially when we post that the new episode is out. You can subscribe to the Talk Through Media YouTube channel, which is where you'll find our newest episodes first. You can subscribe to us in Apple Podcasts or the podcast client of your choice. And while you're there, give us a rating or review. You can go to podchaser.com where you can rate and review the podcast and even individual episodes. Finally, the best way to help us keep the lights on is to support us via Patreon. We would like to thank our Patreon supporters at this time. James Robbins, Kim Vogley, Brian Shiro, Christoph Leitner, Michael Carrier, Stephen Chambers, Jeff Gentry, Robert Kaiser, Clint McCullum, Mike, Trey, Lawrence Todd, Kyle McAdams, Jeff Biaco, and Will. Thank you, guys and gals.
And we should mention that Will is brand new for this week. He just joined up, so thank you so much, Will. All of the podcasts from Talk Through Media can be found on the Talk Through Media all-inclusive feed, including the Re-Binge DS9 podcast, of course, Star Trek Picard cast, the Walking Dead Talk Through, and pretty much all the other stuff that we do. Speaking of one of those things, we finally released the episode for season 7, episode 7, the penultimate, or whatever you call it, before a mid-season finale. Well, I guess it's the penultimate episode for The Walking Dead World Beyond, season 2, episode 9. So we covered both of those, and it was LT and I that did it. Kyle, we finally released the episodes for those two that I just mentioned, and I think we finally released the reason why they've been late. Unfortunately, Kyle's dad passed away, so we
suddenly,
yeah. So our thoughts and prayers go out to Kyle and his family. He's doing okay. In fact, he was the one that did the editing on the episode. We're going to record the next episode for the mid-season finale of Fear the Walking Dead and the series finale for World Beyond. We were going to try to do that this week, but with the holidays, it didn't work out. So we're going to try to record it in between Christmas and New Year's, and hopefully get it out between Christmas and New Year's. So we shall see, though. But there's no beyond that. The Walking Dead doesn't come back until, I think, February 20th. So, but anyway. Our next episode of the Star Trek Discovery podcast is for the mid-season finale, season 4, episode 7, titled But to Connect. It is written by Terry Hughes Burton and Carlos Cisco, and is directed by Lee Rose. The description, and I don't know where this was on, I think, Trek Movie. I don't know where they got it, but I'm sure they got it from reliable sources. Tensions rise as representatives from across the galaxy gather to confront the threat of the dark matter anomaly. Zora's new sentience raises difficult questions. So until next time, I'm Brian.
And I'm Ruthie.
Peace and long life.
Live long and prosper.